Hello, everyone. Welcome. Mm, Let me just go ahead. Can everyone hear me? You can let me know in the chat or you can say out loud. If no one
Yes.
lets me know. Thank you. Thank you very much, Keely. Thank you, Aaron. What am I trying to do here? Oh, this. Thank you, Allie. Thank you, Isabella. And can you see the PowerPoint presentation? Please let me know. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Great. Well, there's only 10 of you here. We should have a double that. So we'll see. Okay. Well, I have 6 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and get started here. I'm putting on a timer. So welcome, everyone. If you're in this Zoom meeting right now, you should be enrolled in a course titled K-pop and the Arts. It could be History of Art 391 or East Asian Languages and Cultures 331. So my name is Logan Ward, and my pronouns are he or they. I am a graduate teaching associate, which means that I'm not a professor. I'm actually a PhD student in the history of art, and I focus on modern and contemporary Korean art and visual culture. So you can call me Logan, or if you speak Korean or you're learning Korean, you can call me Sungsaengnim. That's also fine. I do have an MA in East Asian Studies focused on Korean, so I'm pretty fluent in Korean, and I've also been really into K-pop since the early 2010s, which is when I was in high school. So I know a lot about Korean popular music, particularly from the 2000s and the early 2010s, and so I'm pretty excited to be teaching this course this semester. So to get started here, I know everyone basically put a lot of this information on your blog posts, and I've read through most of them. But just to get us started, why don't you, in the chat, go ahead, we can do one of those, they call it like a chat waterfall or something like that, where you introduce yourself. You can say whatever you'd like to, but here are some ideas such as your name, your pronouns, your major, minor, department. If you like K-pop, your favorite K-pop groups. I should have put two. If you don't like K-pop, just any of your favorite music, because we're going to be talking a lot about just all sorts of kinds of music, actually. And what we'll do in this course is related to all music. We're just focused on Korean pop. And especially if you're speaking or learning East Asian language or you've been to East Asia, I would like to know that because that helps me gauge your experience with the topic. So, good. Anna, nice to meet you. Minhee, nice to meet you. Arnina, you also use that name, okay. Nina, if I pronounce your Vietnamese name incorrectly, please correct me. Ayana, nice to meet you. Actually, that goes for anyone. If I mispronounce your name, you can just type in the chat a better way to pronounce it, or you can let me know. You can speak it if you'd like to. Isabella, nice to meet you. Now, Tana, I'm going to assume is how you say your name, but if I'm wrong, please let me know. Ben, nice to meet you. Jiahui, nice to meet you. I believe I've had you briefly in a course before. Nada, I believe is how you pronounce your name. Okay. If that's incorrect, please let me know. Cheney, nice to meet you. Keely, good. All right, yes. Okay, we're up to 14 students now. Good. Haley, nice to meet you. Here we go. Here's some of the good stuff. So Allie. Allie is studying linguistics in Korean. Lee Seraphim. Seraphim has been in Allie's head recently. I don't know who that is. And Allie lived in South Korea for 6 months. Great. Why were you living in South Korea for that amount of time? Aaron, nice to meet you. Oh, photography, great. Hopefully you'll find some really interesting stuff in this course then. Got 7, EXO, Mamamoo. I love Mamamoo too. Never been to East Asia. Oh, good. Understand some spoken Korean and struggle to respond. Study abroad. Oh, study abroad. Good. Yeah, I studied abroad. When I was an undergrad, I was an exchange student at Sagaing University for a semester. Good. At Korea. I've actually never even been to Korea. All right, good. So mostly we can use the chat to talk. I'll talk about this a little bit later, but there will be opportunities for students to, well, everyone will have at least one time where they will have to speak verbally. But I tend to run these online courses kind of like a live stream. I think it works better for people and it's a lot easier for everyone to get a chance to speak their mind. So for now, if we use the chat, that's fine. But we'll talk about some of the times you'll be able to actually speak as well during class. Owen, nice to meet you. New Jeans, yes, New Jeans is huge right now. I keep calling them Blue Jeans, but yeah, New Jeans is huge. Welcome. Ayana, yes, Ayana is Korean and Chinese focus. 17, got 7. Mamamoo. Stray Kids. Stray Kids is also huge right now. Even some older people I know like Stray Kids. Oh, good. Where did you study abroad in Korea? And see, BTS, of course, for Nada, BTS 17 and ATs. Yes. See, I am huge. Oh, here we go. I understand. Yeah, La Seraphim. Okay, I have seen La Seraphim. I've seen it written that way before. Um, yeah, I'm actually a huge fan. I tend to like girl groups a lot more than guy groups or boy groups. Good. You know some Korean. Knowing some Korean, you don't have to know Korean because there will always be, for the most part, there will always be an English translation of the lyrics for the songs that we engage with in this course. But it can be helpful, particularly understanding like the nuances of lyrics or the nuances of just cultural nuances as well. So good. Welcome. Yes, Keely is also Korean, or a Korean major, right? NMIXX Mix. I actually don't know how you're supposed to pronounce their name. And Twice. I like Twice a lot too. Good. And you taught English in Korea. Very fun. Good, great. Well, thank you, everyone. It's so great to meet you. You know, not everyone is going to be into Korean pop music for this course, and I've already seen our blog. Some of us just ended up here a little bit randomly, and that's totally fine because basically you're going to be learning about Korean pop music through this course. So what we're going to do is we're going to be thinking a lot more about the historical context of popular music coming out of South Korea. So not just K-pop, especially these first 2 weeks. We're not going to be talking about things that are typically called K-pop, but what preceded what we call K-pop and how K-pop is a response to that music that came before it. But not only the music, but the entire culture around the music as well. Um, And we're also, particularly the crux of this course, the way that we're going to be thinking about K-pop is through visual and some musical analysis. So we're going to be really paying attention to the music, the choreography, and the visuals, which if you know about K-pop, and I saw a lot of you put this in your blogs, K-pop is very visual, and that's why we're able to do something like an art historical look at K-pop, right? So we're going to be focused heavily on music videos and some performance videos as well. And then this is the kind of where we get the idea of the arts related to K-pop, right? So we're not going to be talking too much. The first 2 weeks are about history, but after that, we're not going to be doing very much history. We also don't do very much like fan studies. That's also not really a part of this course. However, fan issues with fandom is probably going to come up here and there. And then we're going to take our deep looking and our deep listening of this Korean popular music, and we're going to be thinking more about the broader social implications of it. So thinking about how it reflects nationality, identity, commoditization, race, gender, sexuality, all these kinds of, some of it is identitarian, but some of it is more systematic as well, such as economics. So for today, we only have until 7:15, so I'm going to try and go kind of quickly through everything. So for those of you who are putting your introductions in a little bit later, I'm sorry, but I will go through and read them afterwards, and I encourage everyone to read everyone's as well. But I'm going to keep going with the lecture a little bit, or with the presentation. So first, I'm going to take some questions about your weekly pre-class assignments that you've already completed, and I'm going to go over a little bit about them more. And then we'll review the rubrics for the ongoing assignments. So you have 3 ongoing assignments for this course, one of which you're doing actively right now. And then I'll talk about the other 2 as well in detail. And then we'll finally start talking about the what you read about and listened to this week. I will say we are not going to be able to talk about the Kim sisters specifically today, but next week briefly we're going to talk about the Kim sisters. So and then at the end, I'll talk about how to do your after class assignments. So to start, are there any general questions about what you should be doing prior to our plenary sessions at 6 o'clock, where we are right now? Let's see, it's good. Were you able to access everything easily? I think there was one issue with one of the videos on the watch and listen list. Does the layout make sense? You can answer yes or no to those questions. I'll be asking a lot of questions, and just a simple yes or a simple no I would very much appreciate it. Yes, that's good. Thank you. Thank you. Good. And the reading, was everyone able to get onto the library and download the reading? Okay, because you'll have to do that. So we're kind of doing something where the library, they take data about clicks and stuff onto different sources. So we're trying not to just provide the PDFs directly anymore if we can provide it from the library. So we can actually send you, and the library has that data of how many clicks certain sources are getting. So that's kind of all around what we're supposed to be doing, that's in the university generally. So that's why I'm doing it that way. There will be some later on that we only have a PDF of it. It's not in the library. So those will be a little bit easier. So I do want to talk about the blogs a little bit. Most of us did really well, especially for the first time. But I want to show you some examples of full credit versions of the blog. So this week you had to do I'm taking this course because I do or do not like K-pop, whatever. But in the future, most of the prompt questions are going to be directly about the content, or just about the songs or music videos you have to watch and listen to. So I want to show you some examples of a full credit response to the blog and a full credit question and then a full credit comment. So I'm going to read this here for you. So this is a response to the third part of the prompt, which is what song did you listen to and what do you think about it, basically, is the prompt, right? So Kimchi Gakdugi by the Kim Sisters stood out to me because it is a super fun song, and the fact that it's about the joys of kimchi is really silly to me. It is really similar to other pop music because it's very upbeat with no deep meaning behind the lyrics, as most American pop music is. The song is really just meant for entertaining purposes. So I underlined here the because what you'll notice is that this person not only said what they thought, but they gave a reason behind what they thought as well. So a full credit response to the prompt questions will always explain themselves specifically. So it's not just kimchi gakdugi stood out to me, but this person also gave the reason why it stood out to them. They also didn't just say it's really similar to other pop music. They explained what about it they felt was similar to other pop music. So make sure you're always explaining your opinion, your thought, you're giving some specific information, not just saying, I like it, I don't like it, or this is interesting, right? So that is the bare minimum you really need to do to get full credit. Many of you go way even more in depth than this, and that's totally fine. You'll definitely get full credit, but this is really the basic, like where everyone needs to be at. Okay. Are there Yeah, so I'll ask for questions after this. Now, a question. So a lot of you asked interesting questions, but some of them were kind of relevant to what we were talking about and other ones not so much. So a good discussion question has a reference or some background in what we're talking about specifically in the course that week. And so this is an example of a really great full credit question. I found it surprising that on page 15, going into page 16 of the chapter, it discussed negative reactions towards pop music in the 1930s. And then they just explain their kind of background. Do you think that as time continues on and the younger generation continues to be brought up on K-pop, there will be fewer critical comments about the type of music that is released, the way that fans react to the music and artists that they love? So notice how this person didn't just say, do you think the music is good? Or why do you think this was the music that they made, or something like that? But there's a background here. They made a specific reference to what they read in the chapter. You could also do this by referencing the music video you watched, or the song you listened to, or the lecture video that we watched. But it really should be coming from somewhere specific that you read about or engaged with in the course materials. Okay, so do both of these make sense? Do you kind of see how this is more robust than what some of us were doing? Most of us are doing great, but I want to give this example. So does that make sense? Yes or no? Great. I'm getting 3 yeses, so good. So a comment. Comments are the hardest, and even I have a hard time kind of explaining what a good comment is, but a good comment is basically a lot like a blog prompt. This is an example of a full credit comment. So, and this is only part of the full comment, but yeah, so I am curious, however, how the Kim sisters directly influence Korean music groups, like you mentioned, the matching outfits. Another example would be the fact that the sisters changed their appearances to be more Americanized in American dress. They also had to learn English verses. So see how this person asks a question, but they don't just ask the question, they give specific background to that question, engaged with what the Kim sisters, how they saw the Kim sisters dressing, and the music itself, right? So again, they didn't just ask, this question they ask is, I wonder if it is a marketing ploy, but what if there is a relation to their roots, the Kim sisters, right? So that's a question they ask, but they don't just ask the question, they explain why they're asking this question. They give the specifics. So comments really should be like this. A good comment is really in conversation, like you're actively trying to have a conversation with the person to whom you're responding. So there should be a lot more to it than simply, I like that, or that's a good question, or I had that same question, right? If you just say that to someone, what's going to happen next is probably just kind of a lull, right, in the conversation. So does this make sense? Okay, good. Great. And so I will post these slides onto Canvas and a recording of this lecture as of our time together today as well to Canvas. So you'll be able to go back to these examples. You'll be able to see them among your peers' responses as well anyways. So, you know, look towards these examples and try and emulate this style of commenting and responding. All right. So let's talk about our ongoing assignments. So first off is attendance and participation. So attendance participation is a good 20 points each week, which is worth the same as a blog post. And there's two parts. There's attendance, which is simply coming to the live session. And you stay for the whole live session. So that's how you get the full attended points, right? If you ever encounter technical difficulties during the live plenary session, you can just send me an email at a later time or send me a little chat message and let me know I'm having problems. I totally get it. It happens to me. Even I've had that happen to me, even teaching. So I know all about it. But yeah, so just coming and staying the whole time, you'll get half points. Participation is where it gets a little bit more difficult. So to get full points for participating, I ask a lot of questions. There'll be a lot of opportunities for you to actually participate. So make sure you are offering your thoughts and opinions, particularly in full sentences, to the best of your ability. You know, if it's something like yes or no, or A, B, or C, or something like that, you don't need to necessarily worry about putting it in a full sentence, but but just make sure that you're actually engaging. Remember, try and think back what the readings and the video lectures talked about. You may want to have them open for you to revisit, particularly the readings during our live plenary sessions, especially today. Even today, you may want to have it out for a little bit later. Ask questions. If you have a question, just go ahead and put it in the chat and I will look at it. And the microphone. So there will be some opportunities. So we're starting possibly next week, but definitely week 3, we're going to be doing breakout rooms. I know your favorite thing to do breakout rooms via Zoom, right? And after the breakout room session, we're going to come back and then I will ask for at least one representative from each group to just talk a little bit about, summarize what you discussed, what you were thinking about. And so I will give you the person who does this. You can do this one time in the semester and you can earn an extra 5 points on your attendance and participation credits or grade for that session. So basically you can get a 25 out of 20. And this, though, it will have to be done. You will have to actually verbalize. So you'll have to use your mic and speak out loud for everyone. And you don't have to turn on your camera when you do that, but if you want to, that would be great so that we can see you. So are there any questions about, let me go back here. Why is it not going back? Here we go. Are there any questions about attendance and participation? If I ever feel like you don't really participate enough, I'll give you a specific comment on what I think you should be doing. So absence policy and makeup assignments. So I have a really specific policy because we only have a mini semester. So if you fall behind or there's not a lot of time for you to catch up. So I have to kind of be strict about this. So the number one rule is that you communicate with me about your absence. You don't ever have to tell me the reason, but you really should just at least acknowledge by sending me an email that you were absent. And you can make up 2 absences. in one mini semester. In order to make that up, I'll give you a separate assignment. It'll be a separate written assignment that no one else will have access to it, only you will, like it'll be specifically for you. The maximum though that you'll be able to get to make up your absence is an 85%. So that's a 17 out of 20. It's only fair that I try and weigh that people who come to the live plenary session, if is particularly if it's an unplanned absence, if it's something that you communicate with me far ahead of time, I would be more willing to give you full credit for completing the makeup assignment. But if it's an unplanned absence, definitely. Yeah, so it'll be separate written, and you'll have until the next week, the next scheduled plenary session to submit the assignment for those points. So you have a whole week to make up your absence, basically. So the makeup assignment policy is basically the same. You just do this, you do the assignment, but you have until the next week and you'll get 85%, a maximum. So a maximum of 85% of the score. So even if you do it and you do it perfectly, the most you'll get is 85%. But if you do it, you submit it, and there's still issues with it and you miss points elsewhere, you'll get the 85% minus those points there. Okay, so does that make sense? I think I'm on, yeah. Yeah, so are there any questions on this? Okay, good. And all of this is in the syllabus as well, and you'll be able to find it in the syllabus. Okay, so this is our first ongoing presentation, our ongoing assignment. So so we have an assignment that's a group presentation. I know, everyone's favorite. And it's called In the News. So starting next week, hopefully starting next week and until the end of the course, there'll be groups of 3 or 4. I actually think it'll be groups of 2 or 3 since some people actually have left the course. And you'll be doing a presentation of no more than 10 minutes combined. And what you're going to do is you're going to pick a news story related to the weekly topic, and you're going to present multiple sources about this story at the beginning of class. So basically, you'll get in your group and you're going to go on you're going to go on to websites and like news websites about K-pop, which they're all in the, I'll show you what this document looks like. And find a story that you find interesting. Find multiple sources, like at least 2 or at least 2 that talk about it. And then you're going to make a presentation following certain guidelines that's about that story. So this is going to be worth 100 points. You are graded individually, not as a group. So each person may have a different grade. Because there's a peer evaluation component to the grade here. And each person must complete a peer evaluation about each of their group members and then submit it after the presentation. So let me show you this document really quick. Stop share. Oh, I should have opened this. Hold on. One moment. Okay. Okay. So this is what is everyone seeing the In the News group presentation assignment summary and rubric? Good. Okay. So this is what it looks like. You can find this on Canvas under the In the News module. And it's at the top under like the course information. So I'm not going to read this right now, but go through and read this. It's quite detailed. It even has a step-by-step how you should do this. And yeah, everything is basically in this document. I will go over though, really, hold on, was there one thing? Yeah, so I want to iterate though, it should be focused on one story, but you're going to need to have multiple sources on that story, okay? So make sure that you understand that. So, okay, sorry. No. I'm just going to share my screen. All right, so this is what the rubric looks like. So your presentation needs to have, you need to have a summary of the story, of what's going on here. You need to discuss how it connects to the weekly topic, and I'll show you the weekly topics in a minute. You need to have a visual aid. So everyone needs to have the same visual aid here, no matter what you're doing. So I suggest PowerPoint. You could do Google Docs. I don't know what other visual aids there are nowadays, but your visual aid should include information. You shouldn't be just like reading what it says. It should be just bullet points or just images or headlines to direct our attention to it, okay? And then you need to do a question and answer portion, which will be really quick. I'll ask one question at least for everyone to have a chance to answer there, and it'll be about your opinion. And it'll be for everyone to have, you know, everyone in that group to have a chance to answer, but everyone else will be welcome to ask questions as well. And then after that, after the presentation, you'll submit the peer evaluation, which is on Canvas, and you'll be rating your how well or how much effort you feel that your peers put into it. So here's what the peer evaluation looks like. There's five criteria here. So you can see communication, participation, timeliness, work quality, attitude. So, and there's in the peer evaluation document on Canvas that you can download, there's an specific explanation of each of these criteria and what I mean by them. And I really would like you to leave comments, especially if you give anyone below and above average rating. You really should leave comments as to what was going on or what issues you had. As I am going to be very lenient about giving you your points based on what your peers said, as long as I can tell that you put effort into it and it's not obvious, it seems obvious that you participated based on what your peers have said, you'll have the full 20 points, or is it 20 points? Yeah, 20 points for that. So don't worry about it too much. And if there are any issues, I'll reach out to you about it. And I'll explain to you why in the peer evaluation portion, you may have gotten less than 20 points, or, you know, less than basically an A, 95, you know, 1 point or something. Okay, so are there any questions about this? I'm going to show you the topics in just a minute, and I can explain more about the way the presentation should go as well, which is explained in the document on Canvas. So, okay, yeah, this is what we're going to get at. So each week, we'll have a different group. So everyone is going to be doing this at a different time. And the peer evaluation will be due a week after the day that you and your group do your in the news presentation. Okay. So starting next week, I would like to start having these in the news group presentations. Remember, it's no more than 10 minutes. As long as you hit the points, the summary and the connection, and you have visual aid, you should be good, and it makes sense what you're talking about. So next week's topic is what we're going to be discussing a little bit today and then next week as well, which is neoliberalism, or the concept of self as commodity. And so I also have given you recommendations. This is all in that document on Canvas. Recommendations of the types of stories you could present. So disputes between idol/groups and companies, talent shows, idol working conditions, right? So these are some really hot topics. It's pretty easy to find news stories about these topics in Korean popular music news. Week 3 is musicality, genre, or sound. Week 4, dance, choreography, visuals. 5, nationalism, tradition, or Koreanness in K-pop. Branding and commercials for week 6, race, racism, or cultural appropriation for week 7, week 8, gender, sexuality, or queer identities. So these are the topics, and I have specific recommendations about them here. So I would like to do a sign up now. If you have an idea of which one, I would encourage you to look at your own schedule. This will probably take us a little while to do the sign up. Where did my sign ups go? Yes, here it is, to do the sign up. So what I would like to ask for first is anyone who's willing to volunteer to go next week. I would like at least 2 people. I'm going to be the most lenient about the group who goes next week. So if you go next week, I can guarantee you will get an A, because at the very least you'll get a high A and A minus. And then that's only if you like do something crazily unclear. Oh, great. Allie and Owen, thank you very, very much. I really appreciate that. So can everyone see this Excel sheet here? So I'm going to put everyone's name. Why is that? Okay. I'm going to put your names in here. So we're going to start with 2. I think, how many people? Okay. We could do 3. We can do 3 as well. Is there someone else who wanted to go this week? Or next week, I mean? Allie, Owen. Aaron, are you saying yes to week 2? Or, okay. Yes, Anna, you can go next week then as well. All right, good. So do I have any takers for week 3, which is particularly about music? Okay, Ben, thank you. Derek, wonderful, thank you. Any third person? Okay, what about week 4? That's on the visuals. Good, Aaron, okay. And Nada, thank you. Any third person? None, okay. None, okay, none. Good. All right, week 5. Anyone for week 5? Nick, Nina, Minhee. Okay. Week 6. Okay, Tana and Ayan, are you for week 6? Or Tana, are you for? Sorry, I should have. Okay, we got a lot of people want to do week. Oh, interesting. We have a lot of people want to do week 6. Okay. Is anyone willing to do a different week among Haley, Keely, Tana, and Ayana? I'll give you first choice of the remaining weeks, if you are. Or I'll just go in order here. So Tana, Ayana, and Haley, I think, are first. So Keely, I'm sorry, I have to give it to them since they just happened to put it a millisecond before you. Tana, Haley, Ayana. I'm sorry, Keely. Oh, Ayana. Sure. Ayana, do you want to do week 7 instead? Okay, we can do that. Thank you. I'm sorry about that. But that's what happens when there's a lot of people. Some people don't care. Usually when I have to do this, I'm just like, whichever one nobody wants to do, I'll do that one. Okay, is there anyone? Okay, for week 8. Who's left here? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 people. Okay, Jiahui, you'll do week 8. 14, 15 people. So I think we have like 3 more of us have not signed up yet. Isabella. Yes, okay, Isabella, week 7. Thank you. Who else? 9, 18, 20, Hannah. Oh, Hannah's here. Hannah doesn't need to sign up. Cheney. And yeah, Cheney, you haven't signed up yet. Week 8? Sure. Okay. We can do that. Okay. Good. I think that's everyone. Did everyone sign up? I think so. Yes. Wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to put everyone's emails in this too. I have your emails so that everyone can kind of email each other. If you look each other up on your KU email, you should be able to find each other anyways. And I'm going to post this after class today, okay? If you want me to review the story, I would not mind reviewing your choice of story prior, just in case I foresee any kind of weird issues with it. Should be fine. But if you want, and you want my extra, my first, my kind of pre-class opinion, I can give it to you as well. So, there we go. Oh, yes. So I think in the document it says within the past year. If it's about like a really famous group though, or like a really famous controversy or something that was from years ago, you can talk about it still. Just yeah, within the past year would be nice, but if it's something older and you want to talk about it, you can just email me and let me know. Yeah, it doesn't matter, nada. It really should be based on the news article that you find that's about the story. It could be about, and they could be in opinion pieces as well. That says that in the document. It's kind of nice to have like a news article and an opinion piece to talk about for your presentation, right? So it could be that. Just anything that is kind of like people are talking about it recently. Does that make sense? I'll be very open about the exact story or topic. Yeah. Oh, yes, absolutely. If that group or the company made a response and you want to talk about that, that should be part of your presentation for sure. What did they say about it? Especially if it's a controversy, right? Yeah, definitely. We will want the details. Whatever details you want to uncover or talk about, please share them with us for this presentation. Yeah. These should be more interesting than they should be busy work. So, don't do a good job by doing your best, but don't get too bogged down in like um trying to make it a certain way or whatnot. Whatever you think is relevant, include that. All right, are there any last minute questions? Okay, this is saved about this. What time are we? Okay, we have about 3 minutes. So let me talk about this one. I'm just going to talk about this really quickly. I'll talk about it a little bit more next week though. So we do not have midterm or final exams in this course. We're going to have you're going to have a paper, a staggered paper that you write. So staggered means that you're going to be, I'm going to open this one up here. You're going to be submitting different parts at different times. And I don't want you to get overwhelmed with this right now, because there's a step-by-step every week what you should be doing for it. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to choose one K-pop music video, and you're going to use some of the analytical methods or interpretive frameworks, interpretive frameworks that we talk about in class to interpret it. That should make zero sense to you right now because we haven't learned any of that yet. But particularly starting in a little bit today, you should start understand when we're talking about interpretation, especially, but definitely from weeks 3 onward, when we actually start learning how to do music video analysis, you're going to start understanding what this means, okay? So you're going to have something due week 2, which is next week, but it's something really easy. Week 5 and week 8. Week 5 is the midterm. It's the midterm draft, which is about half of the paper, and then week 8, which is like the other half of the paper, okay? And both the midterm draft and the final are worth 100 points individually, okay? So this is a huge chunk, just like the In the News presentation. This is a huge chunk of your grade. So you need to make sure that you try and stay on it or communicate with me if you are having issues. So what you need to worry about right now is, yeah, each week we'll go over what you should be doing. So this is what you should be worried about right now. So this is from the document. Let me show you this document. Here it is. So this you can download on Canvas. You should download it. You should read it in detail. There's introduction, and then there's the directions, which are the 3 submissions you have to make. And then at the bottom is this timeline with your goals for the paper every single week. And weeks 1 and 2 are really easy. And then starting in week 3 is when you're going to really be doing, you should be trying to do some writing, actually. Okay. So everything is laid out here for you to follow step by step. And hopefully, you know, it all makes sense. So what you should be worried about right now for this paper is you should be looking at some of the music videos that we're going to talk about in the course by looking at the watch and listen lists. And you're going to be thinking about what music video, what song, what group, whose music video and what song do you want to write about? Because you're only getting one. And there'll be multiple, you can use multiple videos to help you understand it, but really you're just picking one, right? And if you're someone who doesn't know K-pop, or if you just don't, maybe there's too many to pick from and you're like, I don't know what, you can contact me and I'll ask you some questions and I can help you find a music video. You can also ask our group. You can send out an email, a group email, if you want, or you should be able to do that in Canvas. If not, I'll fix that. Asking people for suggestions. Maybe I'll make a particular discussion board for that. So that's what you want to be doing this week, is basically just thinking about it and doing some preliminary looking for songs. Now, next week, you're going to want to actually make your choice. And you're going to submit on Canvas, and I'll show you what it looks like next week. Web links for the music video, including the music video. I would like to see if you have a lyrics and translation in a dance video. Those can all help you, but definitely at least a music video, something that's labeled MV or music video. You need that. And you're going to submit just the title, the name of the group, and the web link to the video, because I'm going to want to watch the video, because I'm going to respond to you and tell you what I think some things to think about will be. Okay, so that's all you need to worry about right now. What I will suggest, oh, I'm not even in presentation mode, sorry. What I will suggest to you is you should try and find a music video that's not already part of the class curriculum, or you need to be prepared to interpret that music video from a different perspective. So for example, in like starting in week 5, we're going to talk about something like nationalism and Korean identity, like in a music video. You can talk about one of the music videos that we talk about that week, but from a different perspective. You can interpret it from the perspective of like gender or race, or, well, not really race, because we're already kind of talking about with Koreanness. That's a little bit specific, but or commercialism, product placement, something like that, right? Neoliberalism, which is, you know, our big word for today. So my suggestions to you are to ask me or the class if you're not sure. Pick something you either like or love, or something that you love to hate. Maybe there's a song or a music video that you just absolutely hate it, and you want to tell people why you hate it so much. This would be a fine chance to be able to do that. You know, you don't have to like think everything about this music video is amazing. That's actually not the point. And what you'll see later on is when we're doing our interpretations, we're actually going to be really critical, or pretty critical, of some of the implications that these music videos have. So it's good to have kind of a little bit of an eye for critique as well. I suggest not picking a music video that's too long, maximum 5 minutes, because when we get to doing a musical and visual analysis, we're going to be doing a lot of deep listening and a lot of deep looking. And if you have a lot of stuff to work with, it's going to take you a long time to really do the analysis that we're going to do. And if there's multiple videos, I really suggest that you use all of them to help you understand the song and then the music video as well. Particularly choreography can sometimes be hard to see in a music video, so you may want to see it in the performance video. It'll also be a chance for you to kind of compare the two. And if it has translated lyrics, which most K-pop songs do, but especially if you're someone who doesn't know Korean, or your Korean's a little spotty, you'll want to have an English translated version of the lyrics to see. So, is that my last thing? Yes. Are there any questions about this? So don't worry about writing. or anything, just to be thinking about what music video you want. Good, thank you, thank you. Let me grab a drink here really quick. And every week I will go over what you should be doing. Nada, do you have a question? Oh, okay, great. All right, let's move on then. We have like 15 minutes here. Hopefully we can talk about a good amount of stuff. So let's talk about the history of Korean popular music. We're going to talk about trot for the most part today. And then we'll talk about we'll go back to the Kim sisters next week. So what stuck with you about this chapter? Sticking it to the man. This is the author. His name is Roald Malianke. We're going to read one of his articles later on when we talk about commercialization, commercials, and product placement. He's actually a professor in Australia, and he writes a lot about the modern 20th century entertainment industry and consumption, general like consumption trends too, not just music or entertainment, but other stuff as well. So what is something that you found interesting? It can be very vague, something you found, or just something that you remember that, oh, that really stuck with me after I read this. I'm going to start every single week from here on out with a question like this, so you better be prepared with an answer. Yeah, Aaron, I think I wrote your question down particularly. Yeah, Kisangs. Yeah, Kisangs, we're not going to talk about that too much, but so a Kisang is a female, originally a female court entertainer or entertainer for the elites in Chosun, Korea. But during the Japanese colonial period, they became very commercialized, and unfortunately, because of that, they also became very sexualized. And so that's where there's kind of, whenever you hear about female entertainers like kisangs or like geisha, there's this myth that they're actually also sex workers. It's not true. But it comes from this early 20th century period where they're starting to use kind of these sexual imagery to sell. So that's kind of where the distaste for kisangs and a lot of what Malianke was talking about comes from. Yes, Ali, this is extremely important, right? Competitions, they're not really a recent thing. They're something that have been around for a long time. These music entertainment competitions, right? And they started with radio and magazine broadcast, right? Radio broadcasting, record sales, and magazines, right? Exactly. Um, yes, and they were still, like Aaron says here, they were still rigged in a lot of ways, right? And we're going to talk about that here in a moment. Yeah, so it's kind of, I think what really stuck with me is the fact that what we see going on today, yes, it looks different in a lot of ways on the surface, but on the inside, there's really not too much that's changed, right? And to explain what's going on here, Malianke uses this term, which a lot of us had questions about, neoliberalism. Has anyone heard this term before? And what do you think it means based on the reading or just anything else you've heard? What do you think? No, never heard this term. I never heard this term until I was in graduate school. I see it coming up every so often now in more popular culture though, and popular news and stuff. Yeah, so it literally means new liberalism. So new idea of freedom is what it literally means. Good. Yeah, new idea of freedom. So we're going to talk about, so this is originally a political or economic theory. And oh, but there are also, we have to kind of separate it from the practical repercussions on people. So the theory itself is this general trend in particularly these democratic governments that exist in highly capitalist nation states, such as the United States, Europe, Japan, and South Korea, particularly, that they're trying to reduce public expenditure, particularly by slashing public programs. And in doing that, they're trying to support freeing up the market because they believe, or their hope is that freeing up the market will allow private forms of filling those gaps in the economy that the government originally filled. And so the basic principle behind it is this idea that the freer the market, the freer the individual. So this is new liberalism because if you've ever heard of modern liberalism, which is like 18th to 19th century, it's more about the idea of the government actually putting in place these kinds of public programs in order to make sure everyone can have their freedom protected or on an equal ground as everyone else. So that's why he's using the term new liberalism here, because what he's talking about, but he's not really talking about it in this sense of the political economic theory, but rather in the practical repercussions. So the practical repercussions are that the corporate identity becomes greater or more important or more visible than the individual identity, or the corporate identity really really what's the word, kind of curates the individual identity, right? Individuals start to identify or see themselves as part of these corporations rather than as seeing themselves necessarily as part of nations and things like that. But the big word that we want to focus on, or the big phrase we want to focus on, is self as commodity. I, as an individual, under this kind of system, start to function a lot more as something that's actually produced, like an object that's produced for consumption, mass produced for consumption, right? So I have to start thinking about myself in ways of like, how can I compete within this economy? So one of the big things that you're even doing right now and that I'm doing is I'm getting degrees, right? So there's this idea, this concept that the more degrees you have, the more quote unquote marketable you are as an individual, right? And then corporations will want to hire you. So this whole concept is a new idea of freedom where your freedom is tied to your ability to function within this freer market. Okay, so does this make sense, what he's talking about here? And we'll get into the gritty of how this works and what he's talking about. So focus on the idea of self as commodity. Are there any questions about this idea? Because this is going to keep coming up, so it's very important that we get a grasp of this. Okay. At least one of us is getting it. So let's maybe talk about some examples. So what are examples of neoliberalism in the Korean music industry according to the author, Malianke? So we have a couple of here, right? Can anyone think of some? We've already started to talk about them. There's actually 3 that I came up with from the reading, but maybe there's some different ones. What are some examples of how the self functions as a commodity, according to Malianke? I wondered this. I don't think many of us did the reading, or we had a lot of difficulty with the reading, one of the two. Yes, thank you, Ayana. Yes, variety shows / talent shows. Absolutely. Yes, talent selling. Yes. The entire he actually critiques, he says the entire concept of talent is a neoliberal or a self as commodity discourse, right? And there was one last one, and we'll talk about it. Yeah, visuals, exactly. Visuals are part of selling that talent. Yeah, so the creation of talents, right? So the idea of scouting and training these individuals who can be replaced later on if necessary, right? So we can always just create new ones. We can always create new talents, right? So we don't really need to worry about it too much. Yes, Cheney, the last one is fandom. Yeah, exactly, fandom. And then the reality talent shows, right? So he says, and they really are. I think we're more comfortable saying competition shows nowadays than maybe they were back then. Most of us see these kinds of music shows as competitions rather than like auditions or talent shows. But yeah, they're much more about your ability to compete rather than prove your prove your actual singing ability or your artisanship or your identity as an artist, right? And we'll talk about that a little bit more. And so what he argues is that talent, this idea of talent, particularly in the realm of these reality shows and the way these corporations, these music corporations are using it, it's really just a facade. It's just this kind of, it's just more of an idea that they want to put forth about the people who become artists working for them, rather than something that's actually innate in those individuals. So, and we'll talk whether you agree or disagree with that in a little bit. And then fandom is the last one, right? So fandom, it's kind of this, again, another facade. You have this sense of agency as a fan of this group, you know, especially nowadays, right? We voice our opinions online all the time. We think, and even like the BTS fandom particularly, they have a lot of say on the internet, right? About what happens. They can raise money and make actual actions happen. But what Malianke argues is that while they have that sense of agency, and a lot of times, even nowadays, we see they can exercise it, but it rarely actually brings about change in the music industry system itself, right? We still have these reality talent shows. We still have the scouting. Really actual quote unquote talented people get overlooked for people who maybe have more connections or a better selling face, right? So these are all examples of the way that the self is kind of functioning as a commodity within this system of the music industry. So does this make more sense now? Do you see what's going on here? At the crux of it all is that the corporation itself has the power rather than the artists or the fans. Okay, so what are some examples of the music coming out of this time period? There are basically three, and coming from these corporations that are forming during this time. There's basically three popular music, pop music genres that I saw him talk about. Jazz is one of them, yeah. Two more. So a lot of people talk about jazz. I think because everyone knew what jazz was already. I don't think you knew what the other two were. Yes, new folk songs. New folk songs is one of them. Yeah, so I have new folk songs, and then there was another one that is actually the most basic one. Trot, yeah, it's trot. He doesn't use the word trot, but we're going to use the word trot, and I'm going to explain that in a minute. Yeah, he just calls it popular music because they didn't use the word trot in the 40s, in the 30s, and from the 20s to 40s. They didn't start using that until after World War II. Yeah, and then jazz, yeah. And he says that these are like localized genres of music. What is localized? What does that mean? This was one of your key terms. Neoliberalism was one of your key terms for the week too, but localized is definitely, you need to know this word because this is definitely going to come up next week. Yes, exactly. It's very it's pretty simple. It's a pretty simple idea. It's just kind of a funny sounding word. Thank you, Owen. Yeah, global. So culture or qualities or music from outside of the nation. In this case, the nation is Korea, in combination with local culture. So culture that's from originating within the nation. Um, and so we can use this term not just to talk about art, but we can talk about economies, we can talk about politics, all sorts of things. If it's showing this kind of mixture of stuff that is actually originally from outside and comes in, and a combination with stuff that's originally from the inside, it can be localized, okay? And so these are local forms of music. So I don't think anyone actually listened to this song. Did anyone listen to this song, JQ Up? Northern Countries 5000? Yeah, I don't think we have time to listen in class. How much more do I have? We don't really have time for it. Go back and listen to this, especially to help you with your exit quiz, which I'll talk about. So this is an example of popular music. He doesn't use this term, but in our course, we're going to use this term. It's trot. So trot is kind of the main form of localized popular music in Korea broadly. And it's really what people think of in Korea when they think of pop music prior to the 1990s, especially. So it's called trot. And it's very local. So we can't listen to this right now. If we could, if you please go back and listen to it. But I'm just going to kind of go over really quickly some of the influences. Sometimes with genres, you can go through and categorize by East Asian or European, North American. You can't always do that. And I actually don't really suggest doing that too much because it's kind of depends on what, it's very situational. But he kind of does that. And he talks about this. So the East Asian or Korean and Japanese, particularly Korean and Japanese elements to this genre of trot is the pentatonic scale. So that's 5 tones. You don't need to know what that is. But basically know that a full scale is actually, it's an octave, so it's 8 tones, but it's actually 7 different pitches, but they're at different registers. So it doesn't have 2 tones. This is normal to pre-modern East Asian music, particularly Korean and Japanese, and also a lot of Chinese, pre-modern Chinese music too. It's in a minor scale. A lot of Korean and Japanese pre-modern music is in minor. So there's major scale, which typically sounds kind of happy or upbeat, right? And in minor scales, typically we associate them sounding more sad. So they usually have like a minor scale harmony to them, even though the melody will follow this kind of 5 tones. So a lot of you mentioned this. You said, oh, even though these are pop music songs, they actually are about really sad things, right? So a lot of you listen to Living Away from Home. Living Away from Home is about this longing to go home, right? Obviously, that's the title of the song. But that was a popular song at the time when it released. And it was slower. It's actually a ballad. It's not trot. But it's an example of this kind of sorrowful content. If you look at the lyrics for this song, the northern country's 5,000 kilometers, I keep remembering the Korean name instead of the English name. It also is about something that's actually pretty sad. So there's often a solo singer. There's often a lot of vocal ornamentation. I didn't see anybody write about this, but the pitch shifting, especially if you listen to this song, you'll hear like the like this. That's very common in Korean and Japanese pre-modern music. And then the most important thing, the Japanese inspiration to this trot, which is very Korean, is that this popular genre called enka in Japanese formed prior in like the early 20th century, 1900, 1910s. And that's what really directly inspired this Korean version trot. But then there's also these European, Euro, North American. So particularly jazz, I think, is very important here. So the orchestral backing to the singer, you'll hear a lot of you notice that, like, wow, they're actually playing live instruments. Yeah, that, obviously those instruments, they always had live instruments in pre-modern music, but it's the actual instruments they use are primarily European instruments, right? Strings, woodwinds, and brass that are all quote unquote Western. It's in duple meter, so it's in 2, so like 1, 2, 1, 2, which that gives it a march or a trot feel to it, right? And so it feels kind of like you're moving a lot, and so it makes it feel quick and upbeat. Now, a lot of music, particularly Korean music, is actually in 3. It's in like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, like that. So that's why this is a little bit different. There are some songs that are in 2, but a lot of them, particularly Korean music, is in 3. So let's talk about these. Okay, so are there any questions about this? Oh, that's real weird. So I don't think you'll ever be tested on this, but this is going to help you later on when we start looking at music today and trying to piece together some of the inspiration behind it. And also to help you understand this music particularly. Good. So let's talk about the talent competition. So just to summarize here. So who was doing these? Who was running these? I said this earlier. Who was in charge of these talent competitions? Yeah, it would. So not the government, not yet. Actually, not the government, Cheney. But yeah, so it was a combination of three different kind of companies. So there's the record companies, so they're the one who actually produces the music with the artist. There's the radio, right, companies, right? So they're the one who broadcast it. And then there's also the newspaper slash magazine companies. So they're the ones who publicize it, right? So there's these three companies who are working together. Now think about that. There's three companies. Remember that next week, it's going to be a little bit different what happens. But this week and this time we have three different companies. And then they employed judges. Do you remember what was strange about the judges though? Or there was something about the judging that was particular. Who were the judges for the pop music, like the trot and the jazz and the new folk songs? They were actually experts slash professionals. Oh, I should have wrote that here on this. They were teachers. Yeah, they were teachers. They were actually classical musicians. They were not actually pop music professionals at all, because pop music professionals really didn't exist during this time quite yet. So these people were training in particularly Western classical or European classical music. That's who judged them. So they were the quote unquote experts, right? And the songs, what was particular about the songs? What was kind of the catch with the songs that they sang for the competition? Did anyone pick up on this? They were specific and they were, yes, Tana, yes, Ayana. They were from the company. The company produced that song, right? They were like, oh, this is our song that someone working for us wrote and we're producing it, right? It's our song, right? So they had to basically for free perform this song for the company, right? To be in this competition. And yes, very important. That's my next everyone had to sing the same one, which is kind of boring. I imagine if they did that on televised ones, it would be like really, really boring. But yeah, and they had different ones for males or females, whether they're a man or a woman singer, right? Sometimes this was weird. Sometimes the entrants had to pay a fee. You remember that was a huge controversy. Um, and then, but one of the big things, which is quite similar to today still, what do you notice is really important about this advertisement he put there? He didn't talk about this, but we're going to be focusing a lot on this. What's important here to know, whether you can read this or not, which not everyone would have been able to read this at the time. Yes, it has their faces. Exactly. What's the most important thing for you to know about them? Not what they sound like, not what they're going to sing, what they look like. Yeah. And this was especially for women, right? Their appearance was very important. Yeah. The visuals, right? So what do you think, just briefly, what seems like the self is functioning as a commodity, right? How is the self kind of functioning as a commodity, or how is the corporation kind of in taking over the individual artist in a way? What are some ways that that's going on here? What do you think? There's no right or wrong answers, by the way. Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, so kind of the basic thing that everyone complains about this all the time, but it never changes. Selling your looks. You have to be able to look good, right? You have to have this look about you that appeals to someone, some very vague consumer, right? So you have to make yourself as an individual get to that point, right? Yes, exactly. And they're using this company's music rather than their own original music, right? So it's actually the corporate music identity that kind of overshadows this actual musician's identity, right? Exactly. And then this thing you're trying to go for fame, right? So you're willing to do whatever you want to meet this ideal for particularly to become famous, right? Under the stipulations of this corporation. Yeah, exactly. And that's a very good point, Nada. They're all singing the same song, so they kind of like don't really get to even appear like individual artists in some ways, right? Yeah, exactly. That's the big thing here is that what we're getting to, they're being put, that's a good way to put it, mold of the company, right? They're kind of at the beck and call of what the company wants. Good. So does that make sense? Do we see, does this make the article or the chapter make more sense? Hopefully it does. Yeah. So I would just focus on this phrase here. Self functions as a commodity, right? Good. So briefly, we have like 1 minute here. What do you think about this? Neoliberalism in the music industry. What are some of the pros and cons to it? I think we tend to think a lot more about the negatives of it, but as we can see, this has been pretty consistent since for going on 100 years now, over 100 years. Yeah, long-term growth. That is very true. Several people said that in their blogs too, like musicians or artists who end up with these companies because companies have so much power, they tend to have longer careers as artists. That's very true. Yeah, that could be a pro to it in some ways. What else? What's the last thing? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. For me, I think that's definitely one of the pros. I think one of the cons is maybe there seems to be a lack of originality sometimes, right? And then definitely I feel like the artists sometimes have to forsake their own interests as artists. Not always, but sometimes they do for this company, right? So yeah. And they can become mentors. Yeah, that's very true too. Good. All right. So good. Thank you all today. I will say for the future, you're going to need to start talking a little bit more, especially when I ask questions. I know maybe it's hard for everyone. This is just the first week, so I don't expect perfection, but particularly during the discussion, which will be primarily what we do next week is what we just did this last 15 minutes. Okay. If you need to go, you can go, but I do suggest just sitting back one moment. So you have an exit quiz. This is 10 questions. It's just for 10 points. They're multiple choice, true, false, fill in the blank. These open every week on Monday, and they're due by 11:59 p.m. on Friday. They're on Canvas under the weekly module. There is a time limit. I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna try it with a time limit. We'll see. If you have issues with it this week, please let me know, and we can discuss it next week. These are going to be specifically about the readings and the videos. So we didn't get to talk about the Kim sisters today, but we'll talk about it next week. There's one question about the Kim sisters, but it should be pretty obvious if you watch the video, so I'm not too worried about it. So make sure you do this by Friday. If you have issues with it or the fill in the blank, sometimes people make spelling errors. When you're doing when you do a fill in the blank question, always, always, always recheck your answer multiple times if you can to make sure you've written it correctly. Because I really don't want to go through, I've put in some acceptable errors, but I really can't go through and look at every single person's spelling mistake. Okay, obviously I can't tell you what the questions are, but are there any questions about how to do this or what this is? It's your normal everyday Canvas quiz. It's just to re-jog your memory after class. All right. So yeah, besides the exit quiz, just make sure you're reviewing and looking for what K-pop song or music video you want to look at, and contact me if you're not sure, or contact your peers. All right. Thank you, everyone. Sorry about going over. And I'm surprised everyone stayed. When it's hit 7:15, you're welcome to go. I'm not going to make anyone stay, but thank you so much. If you have any issues, I'm going to complete your blog grades tonight and do that and everything. So have a great evening. You're free to go.